Hi, in this tutorial I will make a Gantt diagram using Excel. So this is the content of this simple tutorial. First I will introduce what is a Gantt diagram. I will mention some tools for making professional Gantt diagrams. And finally I will make a very simple basic Gantt diagram using Excel. So basically a Gantt diagram, also known as a Gantt chart, is a project management tool. It visually represents a project schedule over time, and it uses horizontal bars to illustrate the start and end dates of the tasks, the task duration, and if there are any dependencies between the different tasks. So here you see a basic example of a given Gantt diagram, where we have here in this column we have the name of the task, actually the work that are going to be done. Here we have a column with resources, the name or who are responsible for this given task. So here create STP, Hans is responsible person for that task. Create SRD, Lars is responsible for that task, etc. And also here the progress, how long has or how much have we done with the different tasks. So this task is 90% finished, this task is 100% finished, and this task hasn't started and they are 0% finished. And then here you have we can divide into weeks like this, week 35, 36. So this is the start of the project, and this finally here is the end of the project. So we can divide it into weeks, we can divide into days, etc. And then for each task we can set the duration of the task. So this first task here has a duration of 1 week, this one has a duration of 2 weeks, 1 week, etc. And also we can set the dependencies between different tasks. So in this case task number 4 here need to start after that task number 3 has finished. So basically this is a Gantt diagram where you have the name of the different tasks, resources who are going to do the different tasks, progress, and the actual task with start date, end date, etc. So basically we typically create a Gantt diagram in the beginning of a project to get an overall idea of the main parts that shall be done in the project. Typically we don't deal with details when creating the Gantt diagram. Typically the Gantt diagram should be updated weekly, and we typically use the Gantt diagram for the overall project planning, basically the big things and not any details. And the task duration in a Gantt diagram is typically many days or weeks. While we may use other tools for more details on the daily work, such as a task board. Typically a task board is popularly used in Scrum, etc. And typically that task board is used for smaller tasks, and typically it is updated daily, and the task duration in a task board is typically a few hours. So today many tools for making Gantt diagrams exist. Probably one of the most known tools are Microsoft Project, but there exist many other tools. Some of the tools you can download and use as a desktop application, while other tools can be used in the web browser. And some of these tools are free, but most of them cost some money to use. You can also use Excel that has different built-in templates for making Gantt diagrams, or you can download or use templates made by others that you find on internet. But typically most of these tools may have a lot of functionality, and you may not need all these functionality to just make a basic Gantt diagram. So that's why I made this tutorial, to just show how you can make a very basic Gantt diagram from scratch using Excel without using any types of templates. So here you see the basic Gantt diagram we are going to create in this tutorial. This is very basic and simple. You can use the features in Excel to create a more advanced Gantt diagram, but let's start with this basic. So we'll create a column with tasks, resources, progress, and then the different weeks, so the start week and the end week and all the weeks in between. So let's go to Excel and start creating this basic Gantt diagram. So now I open my Excel, I just use a blank workbook. So that's the start for creating our Gantt diagram, and then I just start creating these different columns. Tasks, so that's the name of the task. Typically it should be a sentence or something, so then I need it to be this wide or something. Then here, resources, typically that's the name of the responsible person for that specific task here. And then a column for progress. And then we start just creating the different weeks. So assuming the project starts in week 35, and I just copy this one, change it to week 36, and then I can just select these two and then just drag here to make more weeks like this. So assuming the project ends in week 46 like this. Then next I can just create and use these border tools like this. And then this is the header, so I make this bold like this. Then I start creating some tasks. So let's have a startup meeting task. Brainstorming and planning, typically we need to do in the beginning of a project. Create requirements and design. And we are going to create an application. This. I'm going to create a web page. We are going to create some documentation. We need to test our system, some testing, and finally we need to deploy or install our system. So let's start with these tasks. Of course, you can easily add more tasks here, or if you need to create a task between, you just insert a new line like this in order to create a new task in between here. Then this startup meeting, it's in week 35, so then I just use this coloring tool here. I can use different colors if I want to, but I just choose to use this blue. So this startup meeting should be in week 35. This brainstorming and planning should be in week 36 and 37. Requirements and design should start and be done in week 38. Then create application, typically a larger task. This will take 4 weeks. But I need to start with that task after the requirements has been created. Then I also need to create a web page. This web page can be created in parallel with the application. But then of course it has to be 2 different persons that are responsible for these tasks. Then need to do some documentation. Start with the documentation in week 45, and let's say we need to use 2-3 weeks on the documentation, like this. Testing typically needed to be done when this application and website is soon to be finished. So I just start in this week and continue for some weeks like this. Finally, we need to deployment, and that's in week 45 and 46, like this. Basically now we have created the different tasks, and we have set up how in which week the tasks should be executed and how long the different tasks should last, the duration. I can also, since this is 2 weeks, I can use this merge on center like this. This takes 4 weeks, and I just select merge on center. The same here, merge on center, merge on center, and the same for this one. And this one. So now we are almost finished. The next we need to do now is to set who should be responsible for these tasks. We can just start by typing names here. This should be done by Per. This should be done by Nils, etc. Or we can also create a new sheet here in the bottom. So this sheet should be the Gantt chart. And then you can create another sheet which you can call resources. And then you can put the different resources here. You have Hans, Per, Nils, and finally Gunnar. These are the 4 different persons that should work on this project. So then I go back to the Gantt chart and just select these columns and go to data, select the data validation, and then here in this drop down I select list, and then the source, and I just click on this one, go to resources and select those, click on this one and just click OK. And then you see I will get a drop down here. So startup meeting, responsible person should be Hans, brainstorming and planning should be Per, create requirements and design, main responsible should be Nils, create this application should be done by Hans, creating this web page, since these are done in parallel, it cannot be Hans but it can be Nils. Documentation is made by Gunnar, testing is made, or the main responsible person is Per, and the deployment of the system should be Nils, like this. So next we can start the progress here. In the beginning all are 0% finished, so this is the progress is between 0 and 100%, like this. So basically then that's the main thing you need to fill out in order to create a basic Gantt chart or Gantt diagram using Excel. So then you have these different columns, tasks, resources, progress, and then you have these different weeks and the task, and in which task the different in which weeks the different tasks should be executed, like this, and the duration. So this one is 1 week, 2 week, 1 week, 4 week, etc. We can also illustrate some dependencies. So assuming we want to illustrate that this specific task cannot start before this previous task has been finished. I guess there are different ways to illustrate dependencies, but for just simplicity, I just use these shapes, find a line, and then just I just draw a line like this. And then this means, or can illustrate, dependencies between these 2 tasks. So this means that this task cannot start before this task has been finished. So then I can just copy this one and assume I do the same here. So this deployment cannot start before the testing has been finished. Then I just put also a dependency here to illustrate that this deployment task cannot start before this testing task has been finished, like this. That's basically an overall Gantt diagram. Also I can here, so this is the progress. So now assuming the startup meeting has been finished, I can set this to 100%. Typically you need to update these progress typically every week or as often as possible during the project. And also then you can typically change the color here. So now since this startup meeting is 100% finished, I can set or change the color to green or something to indicate that this task now has been finished. I can set this brainstorming and planning, it's 50% finished, etc. This create requirements is 30% finished, etc. So then I can also in the bottom here I can just create a formula. Going to the formula, I insert some formula here. So instead of sum, I can just use the average. So using the average formula like this. So average like this, and then you see, and then you can type a text here, project status. So this means that now at this point, according to this progress we set here, the total project is 33% finished. So if I set everyone to 100% like this, then you see the entire project will be finished. And then basically that's it. So basically set up the tasks, resources, and then on a regular basis just update this progress with different numbers from 0 to 100%, and then you will see the total project status here in the bottom. And then day by day or week by week you just set each task to 100%. You can, if you want to, update the color, and then hopefully when the project is finished in week 46, all the tasks should be green, and the total project status should be 100% finished. So that's all for now. So now you know the basics regarding creating a Gantt chart or Gantt diagram. You know about different tools that you can use, but for basic Gantt diagrams or basic projects, you typically don't need to use any advanced tools. You can just use Excel, and you can use one of the more advanced templates in Excel, or you can just create a basic Gantt diagram from scratch, like I have done in this tutorial. Thank you and goodbye.